अस्सलाम वालेकुम दोस्तों, उम्मीद करता हूँ आप लोग बिल्कुल खैरियत से होंगे। जैसे कि आप मेरे चैनल पे देखते हैं कि हम लोग कनाडा इमिग्रेशन से रिलेटेड वीडियोस बनाते रहते हैं। तो आज हम जो है वो बिजनेस इमिग्रेशन को टच करने जा रहे हैं और मेरे साथ जो पर्सन है उनका नाम मिस्टर एलेक्स है। ये RCIC मेंबर हैं और CPA लाइसेंस हैं और अभी बाकी इनसे जो इंट्रोडक्शन है वो खुद जानते हैं। सो सर, कैन यू इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ टू द सब्सक्राइबर्स?
Yes, thank you for this invitation.
Most welcome.
My name is Alex Romano. I represent North Vista Immigration Consultants here in Toronto, and we're here today to discuss business immigration in Canada.
Okay, so sir, my first question is that, like, what are the business immigration programs in Canada?
Okay, well, there are several business immigrations stemming from both provincial nominations as well as the federal nominations. If we look at the federal business immigration, what's very popular these days is the startup visa. That startup visa has been taking more and more attraction over the years. It's relatively new and is driven by technology. So anyone interested in introducing a new technology to Canada can easily qualify for a startup visa.
Okay.
There are other programs in various provinces, from BC all the way to Nova Scotia. Now, of course, there are some provinces that specialize more in the provincial nomination of business, attracting business immigrants. Today, Ontario is one of the larger province, but of course, Ontario has a very high bar in terms of investment capital, in terms of economic priorities. So this is, when we transfer that to other smaller provinces, we recognize Nova Scotia as being an up-and-coming expansion of a province. We will mostly talk about Nova Scotia today. There are other programs, but we could talk about those programs in the next videos.
Okay, that's great. So, sir, as you mentioned that Nova Scotia is the best immigration program right now. So, just tell me about like what is the basic eligibility criteria for this program?
Yes, well, before we get into some of the details, I want to put an emphasis on the fact that the last year, the pandemic, has really slowed down the economics of and the attention drawn to business immigration. We're only seeing some renewed interest through the provinces because, of course, some of their priorities now are focusing to economic growth, redeveloping business opportunities for new immigrants, and I can see that Nova Scotia is going to be one of the priorities for that province to attract new investment. In Nova Scotia, it's a framework where you have an eligibility requirement. There are at least 7 or 8 factors that one must meet eligibility for.
Okay.
Predominantly, it's a scoring grid.
Okay.
You are measured on the fact that you score certain points for every factor, and if you meet the scoring criteria and the province selects that score, then they send you an invitation to actually apply for the program.
Okay.
It begins really with an interest. It's a submission of an interest for you to start a business. Ideally, and we will go through the factors, ideally we start with the basic factor of languages.
Okay.
Anyone with a language score that's above average. Now, what we mean by above average is if we compare to IELTS, a level 7,
Okay.
CLB7.
Okay.
That would score an individual 28 points.
So maximum points.
Well, there are even higher points, but
Okay.
the maximum for that is 28 points.
28. Okay.
The next criteria is education.
Okay.
So anybody with a master's degree would normally score 23 points.
Okay.
So as you can see, the points start to add up quickly. The business ownership is an important factor.
Oh, okay.
Someone who has had business ownership in their country for more than 5 years
Okay.
will score a total of 35 points, which is fairly large amount of points
Okay.
to help you get over the threshold of being invited. There is a 20 points for just having basic business ownership
Okay.
or managerial experience. So, for instance, if someone has 3 to 5 years of managerial experience, he'll get 20 points.
Got it.
If he's run a business in his own country for over 5 years within the last 10 and has ownership of 1/3 of the
business.
company,
Okay.
he gets 35 points.
Oh, that's good.
So that's
Okay.
fairly significant. The next criteria, and people always look at, okay, they ask the question, well, what about if I have a large sum of money to
Exactly,
invest,
yeah.
and what happens then? The net worth and the amount invested is critical, but it is not the most critical aspect.
Okay.
In other words, you can have a net worth of $1 million
Okay.
and only get 7 points.
Okay.
Because they place more emphasis on managerial and entrepreneurial experience
Oh.
than they do on having money.
Money. Okay.
The investment in a project, if you have more than 300,000 to invest in a project, it'll give you 15 points.
Okay.
Anything less than that will only give you 10 points.
Okay.
So we will make a summary at the end of this to show you what would be ideally a best candidate.
For the okay.
As far as age, well, here's where there's an advantage to being a little older than being less or more younger.
Okay.
Individuals who have more than 45 years of age can easily qualify for this program, and they get 5 points.
Oh,
Of
okay.
course, if you're in the 30s, between 33 to 39, then you'll get an additional 4 or 5 points.
Okay.
So that will, instead of getting 5 points, you can get 10 points.
Okay.
So a younger individual may have less criterias in net worth, so it seems to balance out. So an older individual with good business experience
Of course.
has an advantage in this program. Adaptability. What is adaptability? Well, if you have a relative in Nova Scotia, or you have a sibling or a son or a daughter who's gone to school in Nova Scotia, that gives you the adaptability score, and it'll grant you 5 points.
Okay.
The third, or I guess when we run down the line, economic priorities.
Okay.
Each province has their own economic priorities.
Okay.
Some focus on IT infrastructure, some focus on technology, some focus on medical advancements, others focus on mining, construction priorities. The Nova Scotia program gives you points if you are set up an export business. And as
Okay.
you know, Nova Scotia is part of the maritime provinces, so its main export is in the fisheries, in the forest products. It's also in the mining to some extent. But anyone who can use products that are manufactured in Canada
Okay.
and are being exported because of the proximity to the ocean, proximity to shipping vessels, this would be an economic priority and grants you an additional 5 points.
Okay.
As far as we covered the investment, in terms of, I recommend that an investor who's actually serious about making Nova Scotia their home is to invest at least 300,000.
Okay, so is there any net worth requirement?
The net worth requirement, the minimum net worth requirement is only 600,000.
Okay.
But to get the maximum points, you need to have at least over $1 million.
Okay.
So anybody that has net worth that's combined with investments, stocks, land, property, real estate, that is all considered in the net worth. Now, to talk a little bit more about net worth, the province does go through a verification of your net worth. So you have to hire an accounting firm, usually designated. There are 2 or 3 accounting firms that are working with the government in order to assess your net worth.
Okay.
And this is done the minute that you receive an invitation.
Okay.
The first step is to go through your net worth to ensure that your net worth is what you said in the expression of interest.
Okay.
To recap all this, historically, Nova Scotia has had an average grading point of approximately 112 to 115. Only in the recent months, in September, there was a draw for 120 points.
Okay.
That, in my opinion, is one of the highest scores that I've seen.
Okay.
But when we consider that we're coming out of a pandemic and hopefully improve economic conditions with attracting new immigrants, I would expect that the score would be softened a little bit to the point where it's maybe 115 to 118.
Okay.
So ideally, when we talk about all these factors, we're looking for candidates that score at least 118 points in order to be best qualified to take on Nova Scotia as a business opportunity.
Okay, so like the best candidate should be like master degree holders, CLB 7, and if they have a 5-year business ownership.
Correct.
Right? And 300,000 is investment if they made like basic stuff. So okay, so yeah, that's it for now.
There is one, if I may interrupt.
Yeah, of course you can add if.
There is one condition. In order to apply for permanent residency, you must operate the business for a minimum of 1 year.
Okay.
So that is, and usually 1 year is just a minimum amount. So you have to show the government that you're actually entertaining the hiring of new employees, that you have business activities, that you've shown that your investment adds up to the 300,000, and this will give you the best chances to get nominated as an investor for the province of Nova Scotia in order to apply for permanent residence.
Okay, so I have a last question that starting a new business is in this, or you can buy an old business also?
Very good point, Mohammed. You can either buy an existing business or you can start a new business. Actually, the advantages of buying an existing business is that you already have a historical reference point as to the performance. So if you do buy this business, the government would expect you to make changes to improve hireability, to improve growth of that business.
Sales
so
and everything.
You can't just buy the business and leave the business, let it operate as it was. You need to make certain improvements in the business model.
ओके, गॉट इट। ओके, सो गाइस, आज हमारी अभी तक जो भी कन्वर्सेशन हुई है उसमें इन्होंने बताया कि नोवा स्कोशिया सबसे बेस्ट इमिग्रेशन प्रोग्राम है, और बाकी ये है कि नीचे हमारा असेसमेंट फॉर्म अवेलेबल है। अगर आपका कोई भी क्वेश्चन होता है बिजनेस से रिलेटेड, आप असेसमेंट फॉर्म फिल कर सकते हैं। आप नीचे कमेंट्स में जो है वो कुछ भी पूछ सकते हैं, और अगर आपको मिस्टर एलेक्स से चाहिए तो उनके साथ भी हम आपकी मीटिंग फिक्स कर सकते हैं। बट अगर आपका बेसिक क्राइटेरिया पूरा होगा तो, और इससे रिलेटेड अगर आपका कोई भी और क्वेश्चन होता है आप कमेंट्स में लिख सकते हैं। मैं कोशिश करूंगा कि नेक्स्ट टाइम मिस्टर एलेक्स के साथ वीडियो बनाऊं, अगर आपके क्वेश्चंस को हम कवर कर सकते हैं। इससे पिछली मैंने एक वीडियो बनाई थी सस्कैचुअन प्रोग्राम से रिलेटेड, अगर आपने वो नहीं देखी तो आप उसे भी चेक कर सकते हैं। मैं उसका लिंक यहाँ पे ऐड कर दूंगा, और आई होप कि आपको हमारी वीडियो अच्छी लगी होगी। थैंक यू सो मच मिस्टर एलेक्स,
It's a pleasure.
you explain everything in detail, and I think it will create a very positive in the persons who are looking for business immigration.
If we have inquiries, I'm more than happy to take calls on certain inquiries.
Okay.
Nova Scotia is not the only province, but for this session, we believe that this is a province that promises a lot of immigrants new opportunities. It has a great
And
geographic.
a new minister also came from.
That's exactly. I just want to elaborate that Sean Fraser is the new Minister of Immigration who actually resides in Nova Scotia. So this is obviously going to be a big positive for the province of Nova Scotia as it moves forward into the next year, hopefully without pandemic.
That's great.
All
Okay,
right.
so thank you so much Mr. Alex. दोस्तों, आई होप कि आपको वीडियो अच्छी लगी होगी। चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया हुआ, सब्सक्राइब करें, वीडियो को लाइक करें। आपका कोई भी क्वेश्चन होता है रिलेटेड टू बिजनेस इमिग्रेशन, आप नीचे हमसे पूछ सकते हैं। थैंक यू सो मच।